All right, welcome back to Everyday Elevations, podcast where we transform ordinary moments into extraordinary outcomes. So today I have a very special guest here, Megan Gaul. And Megan here is an educator turned coach from Staten Island, New York. So
Mhm.
she embarked on her own little, I shouldn't even say little, but her own 100-pound weight loss journey, which is an amazing journey back in 2018. And while keeping that weight off ever since, she's worked hard to build and maintain strong boundaries to keep out that diet industry jargon and their fear-based tactics. So she's forged a unique way to her healthy lifestyle, and food freedom was the most important part of that path. So she now coaches others to pursue weight loss while staying in touch with their authenticity and self compassion. So, with that, I'd love for you to just talk a little bit about your journey, introduce yourself, Megan. Like, so excited to have you on. Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jason, for having me on. It's funny when you introduce me that way because it takes all my initial initial statements out of the equation. So my name's Megan. I'm from Staten Island. I started coaching in 2022. And before that, I was involved in nonprofit education. I was involved in teaching for a little bit. But I think the biggest shift in my life that brought me to that change to start coaching was not just the weight loss journey and not just maintaining that loss, but also the change in my approach to life because of all that stuff that I did. So, a lot of folks aim for weight loss for, external reasons or health related reasons. But I think what it taught me, it helps in those areas, but it really taught me, it gave me evidence that I could do something in my life and change a big part of my life methodically and slowly and with purpose and with intention. And that I think was the more useful part of the weight loss for me. But yeah, so I would say this particular focus on health for me started in I guess early 2018, I was in a place where I was overweight. I was 230, 240 pounds. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was intensely anxious and just very focused on how people perceived me, especially at work, but also in personal relationships. And it was really the anxiety and the way I was approaching what work and life that caused the obesity in a way, because I was using food as just, let's numb out from all that stress I'm putting myself under every day. So that's really what got me to that point where I needed to take a solid look at my health and a solid look at the way I was treating food. So I think that's the big, the big place where I needed to make a change there.
Sure. So, like the anxiety itself, kind of, and the way you were looking at yourself in that time is what catapulted you into this weight loss journey itself.
Yeah, I started because with the goal of feeling less guilty about food. I did not have a specific weight loss goal. I was overweight, but I didn't really see weight loss as something I needed to do desperately. I saw changing my relationship with food as the thing that was most pressing for me because it was a daily cycle. And there are a lot of people in this cycle. It's daily overeating and daily guilt. And that just grates on you over and over again because you feel like you can't trust yourself and you feel like you're not yourself. You feel like you're handling things worse than everyone around you. And there's a lot of shame in that. And that just feels so shitty. It feels awful, especially if it goes on for years.
So, and it makes perfect sense. I've had some bad dietary habits myself. And yeah, of course, as you're packing on weight, you tend to be a lot more self conscious. And what I found personally is that my self worth was lower because of that. So naturally, my confidence was shot, and it was affecting me at work, personal life, everything you name it. Um, until I went on my own personal journey, I was kind of in a similar path as you, where you were starting. Um, I'm curious with this because I didn't relate to my habits of when I was eating until much later on. I
Mm.
just changed. So for me, I never, like, I wasn't a big, shouldn't say I wasn't, I used to eat a decent amount of junk food, but I just cut it out randomly, not for any particular reason, just started to. But for me, it was more of eventually learning what times to eat and why
Oh,
I'm grazing. So, like, for you, what made that mindset change? You realized you just had an unhealthy relationship with the food. Like, how would you recognize that, and how would you find proper ways to remedy that?
in that particular time, I'd seen some inklings of unhealthy relationships with food previously. Um, so in the lead up, there had been, a bit of hiding food in my childhood when I was living at home. And that was really just because, like any normal parent, they'll be like, we're eating in 2 hours. You shouldn't be eating right now. So I always felt like if I was eating something, I had to hide it. Um, and also, we never really went to restaurants. And so those felt like such exciting, I don't know, exciting things that they really got put on a pedestal in my head. So once I became a free adult, that was like the favorite hobby, just going to restaurants or, getting food out, ordering food in. Um, but so that was kind of a lead up of like, sometimes you're eating not because of hunger, but because of like the fun and enjoyment and relaxation you get out of it. Um, and I think there was another piece there later on in college. I did have one weight loss attempt because I had noticed that I had put on weight in college, like many of us do. And during the end of that, when I was really done with losing weight, I had lost 40 pounds and felt fine. But I noticed a binging behavior start up. And that's really common once the restriction comes in the form of a diet, that a lot of people kind of come off that and then feel more anxiety around food, more scarcity around food. So I was seeing myself doing the occasional binging in the dorm room, just kind of scrounging coins and going down to the vending machine and getting everything I could with the coins and just being very upset when all the food was gone that I could get. Those were the inklings in the past. But I think in that 2018 period, when I was seeing the emotional eating at its height, I wasn't restricting anymore, but I was definitely just using food as I didn't recognize what I was using it for at the time. I had no idea. I just saw the behavior of in the middle of the day, between my shifts, I would go to a fast food restaurant for 2 hours, sit there, scroll on my phone, and order enough food that would get me through the 2 hours. When I got home, we didn't have food in the fridge because we didn't really grocery shop habitually. So we would just order takeout, and that would be something to look forward to. You veg out in front of the TV. And I would just want food that whole time, just something to chomp on, something to enjoy. And I really think I saw the weight pop on, but I didn't want to look at that. I was kind of ignoring the weight, which is common. But what I kept seeing was I would start to do this eating behavior and then feel really guilty afterwards. Whether that was because I didn't see other people doing it, or I was eating midday by myself, feeling like this is an abnormal amount of food that I think other people would find insane. So I was starting to feel a lot of shame around that, but I didn't see it as something. I didn't know another way to like do my day. I guess I didn't know another way to handle my routine. And that's when I started going to cognitive behavioral therapy, where we didn't dive into reasons why right away. We dove into just some really helpful actions. But eventually I kind of put together that I was giving a ton of emotional and mental energy to how I was perceived at work. I was overworking, people pleasing, overstressing about how my boss, my colleagues, and customers saw me. And all of that was draining me. I was just exhausted. And so I wanted to escape from that exhaustion. So food is an easy escape. It's very handy. It's very delicious. And I didn't have other coping mechanisms. I didn't have a routine of no, going for a walk or meditating or deep breathing or reaching out to a friend. I didn't have those coping mechanisms and skills. So I was using what I was very familiar with. And I started to make a change once I saw that coping of food stretched to kind of big proportions that I didn't see in other people.
That makes sense. I'm kind of curious. You mentioned that some actions taken before you even dove into the whole emotional aspect of the food. Are you able to talk about that a little bit? Like some actions maybe they can help the listeners out too as well, learn about some of those actions.
Yeah, totally. And I think it was helpful to not try to solve all the emotional problems. I think it was helpful to start with something tangible. But I was my therapist prompted me with a question after one of our earlier sessions. And she just said, well, do you think, this week you can drink an extra glass of water each day? And I was like, yeah, like this doesn't solve a thing, but I can. And I guess I will because I love pleasing authority figures. So I did. And then at the end of that week, I kind of had a bit of momentum because I had just done something 7 days in a row. And the next thing she asked me was, well, do you think you could get a food scale or get this app where you can journal your food? And I was like, of course I can. And I immediately started doing those two things daily, the food journaling and drinking extra water. And those very tangible actions, writing down anything I ate or drank and drinking more water. Drinking more water helped me feel better in general. I think if you're just more hydrated, you can think better, you can sleep better, you move around better. It's just nice. That helps your mood and your outlook on life. But the food journaling was so key for me. It was a great way to put on paper and stare in the face and be honest with how I was approaching life, because I was seeing the amount of food in a very tangible way. I wasn't just ordering it and eating it. I was putting it on paper and looking at it all in a row. This day, I had this. It really made me look objectively at how I was treating my body. And it also gave me there's a bit of gamification in food journaling, especially with calories, because you want to make a normal day out of it. So that helped me at the very beginning. I wanted to hit the achievement. So I saw that, a random goal for someone of my height and weight was X amount of calories. So I said, I'm going to aim for that. And it just got me into the habit, more important than the actual calories, the habit of pre-thinking out my day of meals in a way that actually fit the needs of someone in my body, rather than just treating food as an afterthought and an emotional escape. The food was intentional to treat my body well. And that action of food journaling helped me change my approach to food completely. And it gave me a nice break from that coping mechanism that I had become so dependent on in those years.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense to me. So you wrote yours on paper versus was it?
Oh, I used MyFitnessPal. That was my journal.
Just want to make sure, because I was like, this is MyFitnessPal, because that's what I used to use. I stopped using it because it became this whole obsession with tracking everything. I was like, okay, I know that I have healthy habits now, so I'm good. But kind of similar to you, I love seeing okay, here's a goal for my weight size. Because at one point I was, so I'm 6'3". At one point I was 316 pounds.
Mm.
I was getting winded putting shoes on. As embarrassing as that was to say, I'd be out of shape taking a couple steps, walking up a couple steps.
Yes, I've been in that
I was
phase.
oh, it's just an awful feeling. And that app, seriously, MyFitnessPal, if you happen to hear this, just so you know, you're a lifesaver.
That's how I feel a little bit. It's clunky. It's nonsensical sometimes, but I love it. I have a soft space in my heart for it because it did help me in the way you're saying.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this, because I know where I caught myself up on being inauthentic with it was I wasn't always selecting the exact thing that was, because I also had some confusion around it too. So how would you help yourself in doing that? because you
Oh.
clearly had like a good system in place.
So did you see yourself like picking the lower calorie option because it would mean you could have more for the day? Yeah. Okay.
Initially, yeah, initially, yes. And I was like, all right, this isn't helping me by cheating
Yeah.
it. And some of the stuff I just couldn't find, so I didn't know what it would be too as
Yeah.
well. So that's part of the problem. So I just have to do the best. And eventually, I got to the point where I was like, okay, well, I don't know exactly what this is, so I'm going to pick the worst one. So this way, I know that hey, maybe I'm over indexing. I'd rather
Yes.
say it's over indexing than under indexing, and make myself feel better because I have less. That's kind of where
Yes.
my mind went with my fitness pal tracker.
You're speaking my language because there are like three ways you can use MyFitnessPal. And one is the first one, like you can track your stuff, but you can be really either sloppy or purposefully uh, relaxed about it so that you can keep eating the way you're comfortable eating, right? That's the first. There's another extreme, which is I'm going to be so perfectionist about it and so overestimating everything to make sure I'm in that calorie deficit that you can get really restrictive with it, like you were saying, like you can get obsessive with it. And then there's the middle ground, which I started, I think, closer to this way. I think I started very perfectionist with it. I got to get it right. I got to really learn how to use the recipe feature and make sure I log all the oils. And if I take the bone out, what's the weight of it? You know, all that stuff. What's the weight of the chicken? But I think where it became really helpful, I slowly moved to the middle, which is where, and I remember it was helpful when I went on the MyFitnessPal forums and found this lovely thread of people who were just very logical about it. Like they had been maintaining for a while and they said, you know, I use it as a tool. I don't pay attention to the targets they give you. I just log honestly the best I can. If I can't find the perfect thing, I choose some estimate in the middle. I get a rough idea of where I am now. And if I need to adjust my weight for my health up or down, that gives me a tool and a place to start with. And then I adjust down if I need to lose weight. I just adjust up if I need to gain weight. So the left, you're using it as like a mean teacher or a mean coach. You got to get it right. And the right, you're using it as like a really indulgent, like nanny or something like, oh, you know, you can have everything.
It's the
But
cool aunt and uncle.
yeah, the cool aunt and uncle, the like awesome aunt who like just lets you run around the street and like she'll be doing pottery. And then the middle is more like your nurturing parent, like your kind, but believes in you parent, where you use it as a tool. You say like, let's look at where I am now and what's an improvement on this based on my goal. I know I can do it. So which way should I go? What should I do? And you can use it curiously rather than punishingly. And that's it took me time to get from that perfectionist view
Sure.
to the place in the middle of, let me use this as a tool. And since then, I've used a lot of different ways of journaling. I've done paper pencil, which I really love. I've done snapping a picture of your food just for like kind of a kind mindfulness act. But I think no matter how you do it, it's that thinking ahead and collecting the information and then either way, being kind to yourself about what the reality is, moving in the direction you want to go.
Okay, I love it. Let me ask you this, since we're talking about this journey itself, and we've kind of already mentioned some of the things that we've personally done wrong on our own journey. What are some of the common things that people tend to get wrong when they're starting this journey?
I think there's a lot of urgency in weight loss. There's a lot of fear-based, I got to get there now. There's a cruise coming up. There's a wedding coming up. There's, my kids' graduation pictures, whatever it is, there's urgency. And I think there's nothing that makes a journey harder than it has to be than urgency, especially when it's not true. It's not true that we have to urgently get there. And in fact, I found that going at a pace where you purposefully do not commit to things you're not willing to do for the rest of your life, which means slow, that means slow weight loss. Doing it that way means that you're less likely to fall off what you're doing, which means that you're more likely to keep off any pounds you lose, which means the whole process is shortened because you don't have to yo-yo back and forth constantly. So paradoxically, going about it slowly without urgency creates lasting and more efficient weight loss. Whereas going about it with urgency causes you to do things you will not be doing in 5 years, like working out 6 days a week and, eating 1,100 calories every single day and not going out to eat. That is not sustainable for 97% of us, right? Would you agree?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've done all kinds of crazy diets too, where of course you get the quick results, but then you have the yo-yo effect. As soon as you stop doing that plan, you start going back into those old habits, overeating and everything. That's what I found. Like I think I did this one program where I lost 35 pounds in like a month and a half, which is it's not
Oh my
healthy.
goodness. That is fast.
It was amazing. I needed to lose the weight. I felt good. My energy was fine. But as soon as I got off of it, because I realized that I was malnourished. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't getting enough of the stuff that I needed for my body. And so I got off of that and went back in some of the old habits real quick. And I've done multiple different weight loss programs. So like, okay, this isn't working. I just have to change my mentality around food.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the biggest thing. And it seems like similar story with you is just we had to change our mindset when it comes to be more mindful in our.
Yes. Yeah. And I think and in the beginning, I found it very easy to focus on the calories and eventually found it very easy to focus on upping protein, which helped my hunger levels. So that was a very weight loss centered way to approach my planning of meals for the day. So my relationship with food was very weight loss centered. It was effective. It worked. But since then, and in the maintenance journey, I've really had to look at holistically, well, how do I want to eat for my life? It wasn't always important to me to include lots of vegetables. It just wasn't. It felt like an afterthought. I kind of, and I still adhere to this. I feel like all foods can fit real sugar, barring any allergies or what your doctor has told you for you to avoid. I believe all foods can fit in a healthy lifestyle. I don't cut out any kind of food on purpose. But I have found over time that if I've had to think about what I want my overall food intake to look like for my general routine. I want to include some fun foods. I want to include a dessert every day. I love chocolate. I love peanut butter. Those things stay in my life. I love certain flavors like, Indian curries or Thai food or Mexican food. I want all those things to stay in my life. So I find ways to make them at home or I go out for them. But I think over time in my maintenance journey, I have moved on from just focusing on the calories are all that matter to, well, if I'm looking at this week as a whole, I want to make sure I have a ton of vegetables. I want to make sure I have a ton of protein that helps me stay full. It helps me, just my blood sugar levels are regulated when you have more protein and more fiber. Just makes for a more comfortable week. And so it's moved on from the focus on weight maintenance and weight management to what does my body need to run really well for me to feel great for my week. And I wasn't ready for that at the beginning. I had a really tough relationship with food and I needed to keep everything in there on purpose. Feeling super restricted and saying you have to have 8 vegetables this week would have moved me backwards. I think I would have rejected it. But I've become a different kind of person now, I think, after doing all that work slowly on purpose. I'm really willing. And now the difference is I can say I'm willing to look at my vegetables each week and make sure there's a ton of variety in there. I'm willing to prioritize protein at almost every meal. And I could not always say that about myself. So I think the key when you're talking about relationship with food and not yo-yoing is doing the things that you don't feel resentful about, doing the things that you feel willing to do and be honest with yourself about those things. Don't say like, of course I'm willing to cut out all carbs when you're not really. Like, I think you probably know deep down when you look at pizza and you look at cake, you know whether you're willing to cut out carbs for your life. You know. So be honest with yourself.
No, I agree fully. So I'm also kind of honestly a different breed of mentality because I'm prior military. So for me, it's very easy to cut stuff out and not think about it again.
Hmm.
Um, that was one of the fortunate things for me is like once I have a game plan in my mind and a structured plan, I'm just like, okay, cool. Here's the checklist. Boom, 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 boom. That's just again, I know that's not every person. It's probably more military based mindset of people. Um,
That clarity, that
that
structure, you love that clarity.
Yeah, exactly. I'm curious because this is one of the things that I kind of struggle with in terms of I find that I don't give myself enough protein all the time. I've gotten
Hmm.
better about it, but I had to actually reach out to a friend who owns his own gym. I was like, dude, like, like I feel like I'm low energy. I was like, I don't know why. I eat healthy, but eating healthy and eating the proper amount to be healthy was something that I wasn't educated on. So how would you recommend that going about that in terms of people making sure that they're taking care of themselves properly and educated on what they need for their body? Like any tools or tips?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. As someone who's focused on, I'm a health coach and I really focus on those habits that the person already knows they want to incorporate, but they need help implementing them. So as someone who's not a dietitianist, nutritionist, nurse, doctor, I always shy away from giving specific, like, your body needs this, your body needs that, because the truth is I don't know. And they probably don't know. And probably their physician doesn't know either. It takes someone many years to discover that, I would imagine. But what I do know, what I do like to do is help that person collect the information they need to make that decision for themselves. So if they're keeping a really solid food journal, if they record how they're feeling on any given day, we can look at what they had and kind of do an experiment and see if an improvement in this area makes an improvement in their energy. So, for example, I never knew for myself that protein helped me stay fuller until I tried it for a few weeks. Like I said, like, let me try to aim for X amount of protein per day and see how that changes my hunger levels. And it truly did. So what I do with clients is we kind of look at their food journal and also listen to their experience of the week verbally. So whether it's, I was really sluggish on this day or I was feeling ravenous in the evening here, those are kind of clues of like what earlier in the day wasn't giving you what you need. Some things I tend to look for are protein intake, fiber intake, because those things really help keep your blood sugar level stable over time. And there have been studies that show that high protein in the morning and solid fiber throughout the day can help just overall, especially in the evening, help your hunger levels. And your blood sugar, indicates kind of your energy throughout the day too. But if someone wants to do that for themselves, I would keep a food journal for 2 weeks, looking at protein and fiber and some things that affect blood sugar. So things that are high on the glycemic index, things that are low on the glycemic index, kind of keep note of those things. And then keep a column there that notes, what you want to look at. So whether that's energy levels, hunger levels, binging behavior. Sometimes those things affect binging behavior. So I would want that person to kind of track those two things. And then as we look at those, we can see what caused better days, what caused not so great days. It's not always super simple because sometimes it's a lead up of a few weeks of behavior that creates how you feel. So that's why that experimentation is really important. Like if your theory is that more fiber will help you stay fuller in the evening, let's do that for 2 weeks. Let's see if you can rate your hunger levels at the beginning and rate your hunger levels at the end. Let's see if it felt better for you.
Okay, so to sum it up, focus on that food journal, put everything in there, figure out what you're putting into your diet, and then basically just experiment, see how your energy levels go throughout the whole process. And then you know if you're on the right track.
Yeah, because everyone is so different. Biodiversity is insane among humans. Some people feel really full when they have a high fat diet, and that's why keto works great for them. It just really depends on your unique genetic history, your body, what you're doing now, your environment, all that stuff. So it's worth it to take that time and do that journal.
Love it. All right. So we're getting a little close to the end here, but I want to give you enough time to, if there's anything maybe we didn't get a chance to touch on that you'd like to touch on, as well as how people can reach out to you. And then I'll go into a couple final questions I'd love to end the episode with.
Awesome. Okay. Well, if you're, either stuck like I was at the beginning, you're feeling like you're in that place where you're relying on that ordering out, you're relying on food for your, stress relief, all that. You're feeling overweight, you're feeling like you want to change. I would love for you to reach out to me. I would love for you to get in touch with me through Instagram. That's an easy place to kind of see my approach and give a sense check of whether it's right for you. So my Instagram is partake_foodie, PARTAKE_foodie. And another thing, if you really want to, like Jason, you like clarity, you like structure, but you don't meal plan yet for the week, and you would like to, I have a free meal planning club where we kind of hop on an Instagram live every week and we do it all together. So you can find that on my Instagram as well.
Amazing. Okay. Love it. Well, let's hop into it. I love these questions I get to ask at the end, just because there's always unique answers. So the first question here, what would you consider to be, it's a two-parter. What would you consider to be your superpower? And if you could have another superpower, what would it be?
Okay. This is good. I think my superpower is distilling data, specifically habit data, into a really usable and visual format. So one thing I like to do with my clients is we kind of collect their 3 months of data, and I just put it into like almost an infographic for them to see the changes they've made, what the next steps are. I think my superpower is definitely related to distilling all those numbers into something we can use to make your life better. And the second question was if I could have another one.
Yeah, if there's one that maybe you would love to have, it doesn't have to be like a comic book style one, just anything that maybe you wish you had.
I would love to be able. I was going to say I would love to be able to not care what people think of me. I think I've gotten better at this, but I want to keep a little bit of it because I think human connection is important. So I would say, like, I don't know, being able to travel unencumbered, like, I don't know, teleport somewhere in the world could be awesome. I think that would be fantastic. If I'm going to slip another one under the radar, it would be speaking any language so I can connect to anyone regardless of language. That would be awesome.
Then you got to add the caveat of speaking and understanding.
Yeah, okay, thank you. The genie rules. You got to be careful.
Yeah, if you only get one, then you can speak it, but if you can't understand, it's still a weird conversation for you.
Yep, I would have no idea what I was saying.
That would be cool. So you're the first person to say that one.
Cool.
I love a lot of people with teleportation and flying. I love teleportation. Like, I'd love to be able to go anywhere.
It's more efficient.
Yeah, exactly. Like, sure, I can do road trips on occasion, but I'd rather be able to get across the world in the blink of an eye versus, having to take 18-hour flight.
Yes, 100%.
But yeah, awesome. And then final question. If there is a quote that defines you, something that you would put on your gravestone, what would that quote be?
It's Lao Tzu or Lao Tzu. I don't know how to say it. But it's perfection is the willingness to be imperfect. I have been humbled by that constantly. It's always a desire of mine to not make any mistakes and to just breeze through life without having to feel anything. But it's always helpful to remember that that's impossible, and that if I'm willing to be imperfect, then I've achieved what I want. Like, I've achieved a life where I'm okay with what's happening. So why don't I just be willing to be imperfect? So that's what I would like on my tombstone.
Okay, I love it. That is a great one there.
I
I actually haven't thought of my own yet. I used
was
to
going to
have
ask you, like,
quote that I
what
live
do you
by.
answer people?
So I I'm trying to figure out a new quote because I've kind of remedied this one. There's a time in my life where I was always focused on the past or the future, just miserable. So one of my mentors, his quote that he says, Jesse Itzer, is be where your feet are. Now, keep in mind, there's a little bit of backstory to when I first heard this, and it pissed me off when I first heard it. So he had this, for lack of a better term, adult day camp, right? Like an adult camp for over the weekend. And we did a bunch of mindset techniques, and then we did a 13-mile half marathon obstacle course. And I did this on a sprained knee. And he's talking to us throughout the whole process as we're walking. And I know that I was deep in a pain cave. And he's like, be where your feet are. I was like, I want to murder you. Like, I don't know what this means. It took a couple years later for me to realize what he was getting at. It's just, hey, enjoy the moment. Don't worry about anything else. Just be where you are and soak it in. And so that for the longest time was a quote that I lived by. But now it's very easy for me to remain present. So I got to figure out a new quote. So I don't have one yet, but I'm going to think on it.
That's exciting. It'll indicate what you next want to work on, which is really cool.
Yeah. Thanks for making me relive that now. Yeah. But with that here, I just want to say thank you for coming on. I want to thank the listeners for tuning in today when this episode does release. If you enjoyed the episode, please show us some love by hitting that like button, subscribe, leave a detailed review. Tell us what you liked about it. What would you like to learn more about? Feel free to reach out to us. And also check me out on Instagram at Everyday Elevations. There you'll get some behind the scenes content, some latest updates, and also sign up for the Wellness Diaries, which is going to be a blog I'm releasing that provides tips from the episodes that we release. That'll be at everydayelevationspodcast.com. And thanks again.
Thank you.